That number again, 630-415-5296, or just Google, I want the IRS off my ASS.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
I noticed something earlier this week in covering so many of the stories, so many of these scandals, but particularly a little modus operandi among so-called squad members and their spouses. Now, I believe if you are married to Rashida Tlaib, which I'm quite sure translates to face of a camel's ass, you are already deserving a little something. I mean, after all, you got to roll over and see her snoring on the pillow. Ayanna Pressley, who's bald, her husband, ex-con for 10 years, he got a real score earlier this week.
This squad member's having a very bad, no good week. Ayanna Pressley's husband miraculously got the winning bid on a $2 billion contract in Massachusetts, and the corruption stinks to high heaven. A couple of weeks ago, the state awarded Presley's husband and his associates a $2 billion contract to build and run a courthouse, which they are then going to rent back to the state for 40 years. That alone.
That's a good scam. And then you think about Ileana Omar. She's been married 5 times, once to her brother. Which money is she hiding in the spouse's name? You know who wrote about this squirrel? Our next guest, CEO of the David Horowitz Freedom Center and author of Domestic Enemies, Daniel Greenfield. How are you?
I'm doing good, but, you know, these husbands, the husbands of the squad members, they seem to be doing a whole lot better.
Here we are working like two suckers, Daniel. I mean, at a certain point, between Ro Khanna and the insider trading, 17 trades a day, each trade, none of them losers, each trade $16,500 a day of profit. And you look at all of this whole thing, tracing back to so many of these countries of origin like Somalia. And the real common denominator among them is a hatred of America, a hatred of American success, a hatred of the principles of America. So when you see CARE organizing a D.C. convention the day after September 11th, I mean, they're just making fun of us, aren't they?
Yeah, they're showing us how much they hate us. Whether it's CARE, whether it's Ro Khanna, you know, his kids own shares in a golf club, and he's there trying to be the socialist heir to Bernie Sanders. These people are incredibly corrupt, and they just are rubbing it in our faces.
And when you see the level of fraud that we've uncovered, when you see the scandals, I've got different, I've got a girl on the board that's nauseating to hear. She's got every ailment under the sun. And you look at the way in which our entitlement sector combined with our public education in this country is just under $4 trillion a year. It's incumbent upon us to not only reveal these scandals and talk about them, but change the way in which they're funded. Don't you think? Because if it wasn't for the structure of funding it the way we do, it wouldn't be so easy to rob the American people, would it?
Absolutely. We're paying more and more money for worse results. After spending over $1 trillion in education, we're actually getting worse and worse test scores. We're getting some of the worst test scores in history. And the teachers' unions right away, they get up and they demand more money, you know, over 6 figures for teachers in Chicago, and free abortions, because, of course, you know, this is a major part of teaching kids to read. Free abortions.
And one of the things I went to Michigan. My brother-in-law's got a place in Michigan for 4th of July. And, you know, I engross myself with their news. We have a station in Detroit, so I've been looking at their news for years. One of the major scandals that really doesn't get covered the way it should is in Michigan, in New York, in New Jersey, in California. The people who are practicing the Islamonazism in this country from those other countries, there's a tremendous amount of these people on the dole Somalians in Minnesota are 80% of them are on welfare. When you look at people who practice the culture of hatred in Michigan, it's a staggering percentage that are on welfare. And then we now know the breakdown of the scams in Medicare. If you are taking care of your mother in this new Obama national health care, you can get paid up to $45,000 a year. So we don't really understand the magnitude of how certain cultures understand, have been cultivated to really take advantage of these systems. And we may be paying family members to take care of other family members. We may be financing the entire areas that are led by this revolution of the Islamo-Nazi in America.
And it gets even better because then they unionize these guys who are getting paid to take care of their family members. And then, of course, the unions pass the money along right back to the politicians who pass the money to them. It's just organized crime.
It really is. It really is. And it's a very successful scheme. When you look at the way in which the Islamo in Minnesota, the Somalians, have been prosecuted, there's been one big one that I could see, 38 years for one of the key figures in this Founding Our Futures. But there's been 3 that have been overturned by judges. I'm not happy with the prosecution in Minnesota. I'm certainly not happy with the prosecution that isn't happening in Maine or in New Jersey or New York or Ohio. Don't you think now is a certain time we have to take up the level of what the penalty is for robbing the people in the name of entitlements that are stolen by foreigners?
Yeah, there's just so few consequences. Right now, the FBI just got a guy named Khalid Ahmed Satari, a Palestinian, for perpetrating $547 million in healthcare fraud. That's over $500 million in healthcare fraud. We spent 3 years looking for him because he was on the run in the Middle East. Now, the incredible thing is this guy's already been locked up. He was out of prison in 2008 for pulling off some of the largest CD counterfeiting fraud. He goes right out of jail. The government tries to deport him. It can't deport him. He starts creating medical testing companies, and he manages to pull off over $500 million fraud. Then he skips bail and goes running. This guy has cost us an incredible amount of money, and that's just one guy, one Palestinian Muslim.
It's a staggering
How many
amount.
more like him are there?
Well, it's staggering. Yeah. It's staggering. You know, and this is the other thing. How could this kind of money be stolen with such little attention until what? The Trump victory? If you really realize how important that was, had Joe Biden managed to pull off another election fraud, we would never even hear about this, would we?
Of course not. This guy was donating to politicians. They're all donating to politicians. People ask, why is healthcare so expensive? This is why healthcare is so expensive. It's organized crime. It's money being moved back and forth between so-called contractors and testing companies and politicians. And of course, the politicians say, yeah, we need to be spending more money on healthcare.
Well, one of the amazing things, I had it on the board yesterday of this child, this man-child, who lived with his mother and father before he got his big first job as mayor of New York. And this notion that we are playing patty cake with him and as he pretends to hide behind a political philosophy, when all he's doing when it comes to socialism or communism is what he's doing is hiding the agenda of the mass expansion of the Islamo-Nazi global intifada. And it's never been more evident than the confession where he pretends as a mayor of New York, which has problems from soup to nuts, from the beginning to the end of Manhattan, chaos, corruption, scandal. He's going to pretend that he's going to enforce some illegitimate court to arrest Bibi Netanyahu. It truly shows that their arrogance and ignorance have no bounds because the people who support them are either getting their rent paid or they're too stupid to know what this kid is, isn't it?
Yeah, this guy went and did his World Cup party with criminals in Rikers Island. While he was doing his big speech, 15th person was pushed onto the subway tracks. 15th just this year, 70-year-old woman pushed onto the tracks by a guy with 14 priors, was in and out of the system. These are the people that Mamdani is enabling. You want to try somebody for crimes? Try Mamdani, because this guy is enabling crimes against New Yorkers every single day. Just think about it. A 70-year-old woman pushed onto the subway tracks by a guy with 14 priors.
It's unbelievable. Well, this is what, this is shows broadcast out of Chicago. I'm here visiting friends to watch the news. This is what the governments do. The governments protect the predators. They use their power and they misuse it. And really, that's how easy it is to describe the difference. The difference is if you want to live in a ghetto, then vote for Democrats. If you don't. I don't understand why there's even some sort of disconnect when you see this Democrat mafia. In Maine ran a Nazi, and in Michigan is running an Islamo-Nazi. It's amazing what this has turned into, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's incredibly corrupt. We just had an investigation exposing that Abdul al-Sayed, who's running for Senate in Michigan, was getting fake donations. They found some 88-year-old woman living in a trailer park, and officially she was supposed to be giving thousands of dollars to Abdul al-Sayed. None of that actually money came from her. This is the guy whose actual biggest donors are a medical debt company, a Muslim medical debt company, and his father-in-law. I've got Mamdani. I just did a workup on Mamdani. He got $300,000 in donations last month for his 2029 campaign. The top donors are Muslim. They list no profession, no occupation, no location.
Well, the real scandal was happening during the Act Blue and Congress. Act Blue since 2004 has laundered $17 billion. $17 billion. $17,000 million has gone through Act Blue from foreigners, just foreigners. And, there were the scandal that O'Keefe Media Group exposed. How many years ago was that? 5 years ago, when they were just grabbing names out of the Democrat registered voters, making campaign contributions. To their credit, the scam has worked. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, you and I have talked about this. The scams are almost obvious at this point. The fraud is obvious. And now I think it's very important that this DOJ is looking at going after Jack Smith, who clearly was fraudulent in telling his excuse, in my opinion, before Congress. At least we're getting some headway. And I'm wondering to know what your thoughts are, because you do this a lot. I feel like this is the most aggressive DOJ, the most successful DOJ from the principles I want, enforced law and order of the American law. Do you feel this way? I mean, I feel like we at least have a shot.
Yeah, so many previous Republican administrations were just a waste of time. The DOJ did nothing, or they actually were functioning the way they did under the Democrats. And now there's actually a seriousness here. There's actually some consequences here. Jack Smith stuff is out of this world. This is the guy who went after a big chunk of Congress, even Democrats. This is spying that makes Watergate look like just a guy with a cup to his ear.
And, that's the other thing. I used to have such an appreciation for the fact that politicians, for the bulk of my life, were nervous that these scandals would come out. They would be nervous about just some of the things you and I have talked about in the very beginning of our discussion today. This would be earth-shattering to Chicago Mafia crime syndicate Democrats. They would be like, oh, wait a minute. Do they know? Do they know who my wife is? You look at this whole thing. I don't. Is it the Clintons that broke the conscience of America, where there is no such thing as a scandal anymore?
It's also the media, in all fairness. They used to be worried about the media, that the media might report something unfavorable about them. We now see the media's program to carry the narrative until the moment it turns. And we saw this, for example, with Plattner just now in Maine. And then suddenly the media completely turns on a dime. The media have been covering for these guys, suddenly starts running scandal pieces. Like the media spent years pretending that Biden wasn't a dementia case. Then suddenly the signal was given, and they were all running articles. Oh, no, he needs to step away. We need to take away his keys. He's not functional anymore.
Well, you know what else is fascinating? To watch Hunter Biden on tour, the crack smoker du jour, and all of the investments, all of the consultation, all of the businesses he was privy to, from China to Ukraine, from energy companies to entertainment to amusement parks. And yet nobody asks him anything financial. This is the other thing I think we've become used to. We're used to being cultivated that it's okay to run these kind of scandals. And when all else fails, normally we're crippled with the racism, the Islamophobia. The Bidens don't even have to do that. They just get away with it because we let them get away with everything, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. And we've also, as bad as the media is, we've created this corrupt social media. People look at these Biden interviews. What they don't understand is that ahead of time, certain questions are ruled to be off limits. You want to interview this guy, you have to follow his narrative. And people don't realize that. It looks very natural because it's on social media. And it's all fake. You can't ask him about the financials, which is a really big stuff. You can't ask him about some of the girls. You can't ask him about the diamond that the Chinese oligarch gave him. You can't ask him about 10% for the big guy. All the stuff is off limits.
So it's the behind-the-scenes agreements before he ever steps on that people are unaware of, so they're getting a cultivated fraud product that appears to be information when all it is a skit. I mean, that's how it really – that's exactly. Behind the scenes what it is. It's a skit. So I'm wondering how you feel about the pushback that has been happening, always the ace in the hole for the media, for the American Democrats, when you see the scandals that are breaking of the Islamo-Nazi culture, whether it's Somalia or Michigan. They tried this Islamophobia scandal all my life. You see it come up occasionally here. I saw you wrote an article that it fell apart in the UK. What happened?
Yeah, they had these big headlines, dozen people arrested, far right, they were planning attacks. A few days later, they come back with there's no evidence that they were planning any attacks. It's a lie. It's a lie so often. I remember the Burlington shooters, 3 Muslim men got shot walking down the street. They started screaming that it's Islamophobia. They were targeted. It turned out they were not targeted. There were no hate crime charges being pressed. There was zero evidence this guy was mentally unstable. He actually loved Muslims and supported Hamas, the shooter. He had no idea who they were. He was just out of his mind. We have this in the Chapel Hill killing. Illegal alien MS-13 guy goes ahead, kills this Muslim girl, has absolutely nothing to do with religion, but all these Islamic groups come down, they start screaming, we need to charge him with a hate crime. Again, zero evidence. This guy was an illegal alien MS-13 member. This happens over and over again. They take a regular crime, they start claiming that it has an Islamophobic aspect. There's zero evidence of it. A friend of mine actually just exposed another one of those up in Rhode Island that was also fake. Guy got shot in a drug dealing incident. They started claiming it was Islamophobia.
Well, where it's coming out now is in Minnesota, and you see, the information of what these Somalian gangs, aside from the fact 80% are on welfare, the other 20% seem to be running scams on Medicare. The kids, the Somalian kids, there's 12 different gangs in Minnesota. They've killed in the last month, 4 or 5 people, which in Chicago, we hit that number by Wednesday, but in Minnesota, that's a big number. And the sheriff comes out to tell the people of the 12 gangs, and the Democrats of Minnesota say he's an Islamophobe. I mean, who knew that the street gangs in Minnesota are primarily controlled by Somalian kids? This is, once again, earth-shattering scandal, isn't it?
Yeah, also in Maine, by the way. Most people do not know that. Places like Portland and Maine have a huge Somali African gang problem. These are places that were pretty quiet 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Now they're in the hub of shootings. I mean, we've got a Taliban gang. We've got a gang that calls itself the Taliban in the United States that's composed of these people. Incredible. We went to Afghanistan. We've got a Taliban gang in America now.
I mean, it's ultimately, we're going to get to that point. And what is it? The Sunnis and the Suites. And that's why right now, the Iranians are bombing the Saudis and everybody else. But where are it won't be long. That war will be right here in this country between the cultures that are from those origins. And we'll have, for all we know, those are the gangs now that are fighting each other. Why would there be 12 different Somalian street gangs in Minnesota? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, the funny thing, and this is a story that practically nobody knows when people start talking about Islamophobia, the most serious Islamophobic attack in America, the killing of 3 men in Phoenix, was carried out by a Sunni targeting Shiites from Afghanistan. It was Muslim on Muslim violence. There was something with his daughter going on there. He came after Shiites.
Can I ask a stupid question? Because, you got to remember, you're talking to a meathead from outside of Chicago. What exactly is the primary argument between the Sunni and the Shiite?
It's all about power. Islam is all about power. The big difference is that was a question of who was going to take over after Muhammad, the original warlord who founded Islam, died. So the question is which family member was going to take over, and the Sunnis go with one guy, the Shiites go with another guy. They started fighting each other very quickly, and that's pretty much it.
The more you get into this nonsense, the dumber it is. That's why I love the fact you continue to write about it, tell us all about it, and give us an outlet and a vehicle in frontpagemag.com. You don't ever stop now. I know you do a lot of work. I mean, since the last time I talked to you, I think you got 14, 15 articles. What do you got cooking that we need to keep an eye on for tomorrow and the next day?
I'm doing a deep dive into some of where the Islamist political money is coming from. I've been looking at Mamdani. I'm starting to look at some of the other politicians in this country. A bunch of this money is almost certainly foreign money. It's coming from private equity firms that have ties to foreign governments, to offices in Dubai and Qatar.
You know what's funny, Daniel? Did you ever think as a grown man in America, you'd have people in positions of power that never bought their own car? Never bought his own car, lived with his mother, never paid his own bills. That's the only thing that I take a little bit of, I relax a little bit. This version of communism is started by entitled, spoiled brat kids that never paid their student loans. Oh, feel free to use that for one of your articles.
Yeah, to be fair, the old one was also started by kids who never actually worked for a living. I mean, Marx, Lenin, Mao, Chen, none of these people, these were all rich kids that never worked for a living.
Boy, oh boy. You know, people forget about Mao. He was rich. His family was big farmers. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. See, but we have this knowledge this time, Daniel. I think there's far more of us. If you look at the county elections in America, especially presidential elections by county, only 10%, 11% stupid in this country. We could beat them, especially with Front Page Mag.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend, for always making time. Go enjoy dinner. I appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be back with your calls and comments.
This is the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron. Christian Healthcare Ministries is not another health insurance policy. If you're tired of year-long contracts and pointless restrictions, CHM offers anytime enrollment on your schedule and at your convenience. With CHM, you're paying half the cost of a traditional health insurance plan. So that puts more money back into your budget for everyday needs. Plus, you'll have access to CHM's care solutions for virtual appointments, prescription savings, surgery support, and more. My family and I joined in 2018, and it's changed our lives for the better. We love paying way less while helping other believers afford their medical bills. Take the leap of faith and see why Christians across the nation are better with CHM.
Get started by calling 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS for a 50% credit towards your